This is the Imperial Armored Marauder. Well, this is the box. There's nothing in it. So you guys saw it in last week's video, and if you didn't, go ahead and check that video out. I'll have it linked down below. I took two different copies of Anakin's Jedi Interceptor and mashed them together to create the ultimate Interceptor. But this video is over something we teased in the beginning of that one. Today we're covering a set that I've covered many times before in a few different forms. Okay, I reused the same footage from the last video, but it still works. It works perfectly, don't worry. So this build that you see before you is actually a heavily modified version of an alternate build by HailBricks. Using two copies of the Imperial Armored Marauder, they created the Imperial Marauder Shuttle, which I've heavily modified to better suit my own ideas and what I want out of the ship. And because this is the internet, I do have to make it clear that anything that I regard as better or an improvement from the original build is not an insult to HailBricks' original work. I'm just saying it's better for my own taste and what I want out of the ship. I'm not putting down what is the original build. They created something that they wanted, and now I'm modifying it to better suit what I want. And before we dive into this alternate build, for 2,000 subscribers, I would like to do a Q&A video, and in order to do that, I need questions. And of course, this video would entail my face, and it wouldn't just be my hands waving around while I'm talking against a desk. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and leave any questions you want answered down below in the comments, or you can head over to the community tab on my channel and leave them on the community post I made there. But now we can move on to the Imperial Armored Dropship. I wanted this ship to serve as more of a combat dropship. It's not really meant to be an attack craft. It's meant to land, drop troops off, and get out of there as quickly as possible. And speaking of troops and the trooper bay, let's go ahead and go over the trooper bay. On both sides here, you can see we have these small little doors that actually double as ramps when the ship is folded down for quick entry and exit. And alongside the side doors, we have one larger rear door with a turret on either side to protect troopers when they're coming or going. On this interior section, you can see we have two seats on either side, and those troopers are meant to go out of the side exits. And then we have plenty of foot space for troopers that are standing up ready to fly out of the rear door. And with a single jumper plate and some leftover pieces from the set, you can create a small gunner position in these two side doors. Further up in the interior space, I know it's a little dark in there, but you can see we have two more chairs for some high-ranking Imperials, or in our case, transporting a prisoner. We'll be able to get a slightly better look at those later though. Exiting the interior space with all the doors closed up, we can look above those two rear turrets, and you can see we have the two main engines for the ship. And I wanted to do more with these and make them look a little more beefy and give them a little bit more oomph, but the pieces I needed were already being utilized elsewhere, and I didn't want to change anything up because it all looked really good, so I went ahead and just left them how they are. But I did work in some extra engines that we'll see later on to help remedy that problem. On the roof here, you can see I used quite a bit of smooth tile pieces to help make this area real smooth and real clean. The original build already had a hatch on it in this section, but it was much smaller and it was just a little too cramped to get your fingers in there and position figures in those seats. So I went ahead and ripped that out, and I opted for a much larger trap door, and this makes it much easier to get my minifigures in those seats and position them how I want. On either side of that hatch, you can see where a lot of the heavy modification went from the original build. The original build had some much larger wings and they looked fantastic, but I had one kind of weird gripe with it. Now, it wasn't bad by any means. This isn't an insult to the original build or builder. I know this might not make sense to much people, but those wings just looked a little too earthly for me. They looked like they followed Earth's laws of aviation and flight that we know here, and I wanted to make it a little bit more sci-fi and a little bit more Star Wars-y, so I opted for the smaller thruster/repulsor section. I know that might be a little confusing to some people, but that's the reason I went ahead and changed it out. On the bottom side, those thrusters/repulsors are represented by the light blue studs that made up the engines of the original Imperial Armored Marauder, and up top we used some more tile pieces to give it some nice, smooth, clean detail. And although this isn't really an attack craft, there are actually some forward-facing weapons controlled by the pilot. Attached to either thruster unit, you can see we have one light blaster, and then on either side of the cockpit, we have two stud shooters. And underneath the thruster units, you can see these rounded pieces here. Originally, these weren't any weapons or any kind of cannons, but after playing with it for a while, I like to imagine these as some sort of grenade launchers, and in my head, these launch smoke grenades, so that way the ship can land, shoot out the smoke grenades to cover the troops when they're disembarking, and then when it quickly flies off, it'll disperse the smoke with all that thrust that it's generating, and the troops can move forward in battle. And just behind those little smoke screen launchers, HailBricks managed to work in some container storage. Now, they are studded in, so you don't need these little doors, but it is nice to fold them down and make it look like they're secured in there by the door. And the last section to go over is actually this cockpit going down the middle. This front end portion and the way that the cockpit sits is actually changed from the original build, though it doesn't look too different. The cockpit is now attached with some clip bits up at the top of the clear canopy piece, and I did this to make that clear canopy piece a little bit more parallel with the slope bricks that build up the side. But due to this, you can only push the assembly up so much, but you can peel off that clear canopy piece easily enough, so I don't really consider it a downside. On this cockpit assembly, you can see the control panel is made up of the two standard printed control panel pieces that are used in a lot of Star Wars sets. And then down the middle, I have a red translucent brick to make up a dashboard or a larger screen. Inside the cockpit, the pilot is sitting in a standard Lego chair mold that's offset with a jumper rounded tile, and then some cheese slope pieces on the side to prevent that seat from swiveling side to side. And to finish it off, up front on the nose of the ship, we use some basic smooth pieces to help round it out and give it a nice clean look. And then that pretty much covers everything that I did to HailBricks' Imperial Marauder Shuttle to turn it into the Imperial Marauder Dropship. Thank you to HailBricks for the original video and build. I'll of course have their video linked down below if you want to make their version. And if you guys enjoyed the mods that I did to turn it into the Imperial Marauder Dropship, you can let me know by leaving a like on this video or commenting down below. And don't forget to comment any questions you have for the Q&A down below or on the community post on the community tab on my channel. Other than that, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on any alternate build or mod videos that I post in the future, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.